low carbohydrate diets. They can be a useful tool, but I see more struggling mentally with people who do well on a low carb diet, and then as soon as they start to incorporate carbohydrates back in, they get scared of that initial weight gain that pops up, even though it generally levels out after like 10 days. They feel like that's the card they have to play. What do you find to be maybe some of the dangers or downsides of prolonged low carb dieting?
Yeah, so especially in the demographic that I work with, I think it's one of those, I usually don't make generic blanket statements. I love to explain nuance and context and say, well, it depends, and here's what it depends on. But for the demographic that I work with, primarily women in their 40s and older, it is causing more harm than it is doing good. And even if you're able to get some temporary weight loss by going low carb, during that time period when you are more sensitive to stress, when hormones are fluctuating, and again, it's going through a certain season or phase, perfectly normal part of life, we do need a tool in the toolbox that is going to be able to help us with stress management and recovery. So when you go low carb, you're basically losing a tool that helps to shut off cortisol. So, carbs raise insulin. Insulin is the shut off valve to cortisol. Being able to increase serotonin, carbs help to boost your mood balancing hormone or neurotransmitter, serotonin. Performance, a lot of times, I'm working with women who lift heavy and they want to get stronger. Well, that's like, if we're not incorporating, some carbohydrates for performance and for recovery, we're leaving results on the table. And then just for straight up energy to get through your day. Again, having a demanding job and a family life and all the things that you're doing, it requires energy. Your brain requires energy. So when you start to notice that fatigue, brain fog, I can't really come up with the words that I used to, I'm struggling to form sentences. There's a reason for that, because you're depriving your body of a primary fuel source that it enjoys. And I think there's this big misconception. A lot of times when we talk about low carbs, we talk about carbohydrate in general, oftentimes you'll hear people immediately go to like bread, pasta, cookies, cake. We forget about, vegetables and fruit and potatoes and rice and oats. When you start to bring that into the lens, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot that those are all carbohydrates. And then when you look at like the sweets and everything, typically foods like that, cookies, ice cream, cake, all that stuff that are labeled carbs typically have just as many, if not more, calories from fat than from carbs. There's a lot of misinformation out there about low carb dieting. Like you mentioned, it is a tool in the toolbox. Typically, it's something that I'll use when we have an individual who is more resilient to stress and has the ability. Maybe they're not doing as much heavy lifting. It's just kind of more of a lifestyle client who wants to be healthy, walk a little bit more, but not trying to build a bunch of muscle or work out, intensely in the gym or anything like that. It is a tool that we have in the toolbox, but I think especially for my demographic, it's a hard pass.
Hard pass. I like it. It's such a great way to phrase it. Like, again, it's a tool in the toolbox. It doesn't mean it's something you can't, but if you have all these additional external stressors, and then you remove a primary macronutrient that's going to be, one, a great source of fuel for your brain, it's going to help, optimize conversion of, frankly, T3 to T4 and thyroid function. It's going to help reduce cortisol directly after a workout, or if you're in a highly stressed environment. Removing that can drive stress up, negatively impact sleep, and pretty soon, when you've elevated stress and decreased sleep quality, every other hormonal system inside your body, not to mention your willpower, your ability to make good decisions, is going to go down the drain. It's a tool that you can use, but you have to be aware of the consequences of it, and even have a structured play to gradually bring the carbohydrates back in. I think that's such an important piece of understanding that diets don't have to be linear across the board. Like, if you take a measure that's going to be more intense, well, you have to have an exit strategy for it. And if there's no exit strategy, that's when people start to follow these crazy, basically like photo shoot prep diets, because they're like, hey, X, Y, and Z got ripped for a photo shoot for this. And then they try to apply it forever, not understanding, contextually speaking, that individual might have been at 40, 50% carbohydrates for 9 months. They flipped a switch off for 6 weeks, and then they're going to gradually build back up on the backside.
Did you find this helpful? If so, pound that like button and hit subscribe. Now, if you want a free copy of our Chiseled Muscle Cheat Sheet, the no BS way to help you lose body fat and build lean muscle in 90 days, make sure that you go to the description below and download your free copy. Any questions? Drop them in the comments, and can't wait to see you with the next video.